Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans. I'm your host, Eric Asher, and a happy Veterans Day to all those that have continued, that are serving and continue to serve in our nation's military. Well, again, a big thank you to you and to all your families for all the sacrifice you've made for our country. Today, as always, we're live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios. And of course, we're live streaming on the WLAE-TV YouTube page. If you're watching at 1 o'clock as we are live. And of course, I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover the Saints, Tulane, LSU, Pelicans. And to break it down for us, one of the best we have in the entire city, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports. Sean, welcome to the show. How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great. It's an interesting time of year. We're in November now, and it's getting fun. Yep. It's certainly something, the football season is well into, week 10? Mm-hmm. And then basketball's heating up, prep football playoffs, everything happening right now. That's right.
And of course, you guys, want to talk about the shows before we get started, because you guys got it jam-packed all week long, and now carrying football on Thursday. Yeah,
and actually this Thursday show we'll have tonight Ravens and Dolphins. I don't know how that matchup's going to look or go, but I mean on paper it looks like it should be a lopsided one, but I think it could be a decent game. And then Friday we have Fox 8 Football Friday. Prep football playoffs, week 1, always a fun time of year. It's going to be cold too, so that's going to be interesting. Sunday we have our Fox 8 live tailgate at 10 a.m. and then the final play at 10:35, and then Monday we have Black and Gold Review with Juan Kincaid, Deuce McAllister, and myself. And then Tuesdays we have the Fox 8 Overtime show. We just kind of talk sports, similar to this sort of format. And then on Wednesdays we have Saints game plan at 10:35 with Juan Kincaid and myself. Jeff Duncan joins us. Garland and Chris contribute as well. So write it all down, put it on a piece of paper. I'm going to text you after the show to make sure you know which show is coming on which night.
There you go. And of course, the podcast is really good, guys. If you enjoy a podcast, got to check out
Chris
the podcast.
Hagan and myself do the podcast as well.
Do a great job. And his blog, award-winning, by the way. All right. Before we get started, looks like we were just talking. Looks like this might be a travel weekend for Saints fans, huh? Heading up to Nashville?
Good time of year to go to Nashville. Nashville is a very fun city. Yeah. It's I feel like over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, it's really just kind of catapulted itself to one of the more popular cities in America. Last time we went was 2019. Had a phenomenal time. They have a good little entertainment area, which is very close to where the stadium is and very close to where the Nashville Predators play hockey. It's just a fun atmosphere, good music, just a good vibe over there. So it does not shock me that Saints fans would circle this game to say, let's go. It's a good time of year. It's probably going to be cold-ish, but not very, unbearably cold. Probably in the 50s or something like that. And New Orleanians is always looking to have a good time, and I think this is a good time to pick. I've been to a lot of cities in my travels, and Nashville's at the top of my list.
There's no doubt. I mean, again, my daughter lives in Nashville now. We had a chance to go there during the evacuation. Spent about 2 weeks up there, and it's amazing what they've done. Stadium on one side, as you mentioned. Well, again, we have that natural asset, the French Quarter. They have kind of copied that with a country music theme. It's almost like, if you want to picture something, picture Decatur Street with a line of clubs like you see on Bourbon Street, but in this case, it's all music clubs and restaurants. Amazing what they've done. And you just mentioned the Predators play on one side, the Titans play on the other side. It's manufactured. It's not, again, like we have as a natural assets, but they've done a great job with it. Again, I expect a real big contingent of Saints fans up in Nashville this weekend. All right, 5-3. By the way, that's a noon kickoff against Tennessee. 27-25 losers to the Falcons. Sean, we talked about it on the radio show yesterday. I lament this, and look, you got some tough games down the stretch here. You cannot play down to the competition, the Carolina, the Giants, and Atlanta, and expect that not to come back and bite you down the line. The football gods do not smile on teams that let inferior teams beat them. All three of these teams in the NFC, two of those teams in the division. Yeah,
and the Saints deserve that loss because honestly, after the game, you listen to certain things, you hear certain things. We got a ton of emails about it. Saints should have won. They shouldn't have won that game. They deserved every bit of that loss. They came out, looked like they were sleepwalking the first quarter of that game, first half of that game. Turned it on late and made that improbable comeback, and I think the Falcons aided in that with a little bit of implosions to kind of what they do. But nonetheless, the Falcons are always one of those teams that feels like their talent never matches their underachieving record. But they have talent. I say it every year. Every got top-tier talent. And when that talent comes together without a very good receiver in Calvin Ridley, you see what can happen. And Matt Ryan can touch greatness. He's not great every week, but he can touch it from time to time. And it felt like he had it on Sunday. And they made a statement from the very first play that they were going to take the fight to the Saints. They like the Saints, their matchup with their pass catchers and skill guys against the Saints secondary, which not every team does. And I think they won that matchup pretty much in a big way. It might have been the difference in the game. So if you're the Saints, you let one get away. You sleptwalk through that, and we've seen it back in 2019. They did the same thing inside that building against that very team. And now all of a sudden, you look at the NFC South standings, and what looked like, battling for first place with the Bucs. Now all of a sudden, you got Atlanta just a game back behind you. And oh, by the way, Carolina just signed a guy that they know quite well in Cam Newton. So all of a sudden, middle of the season here, this division is not nearly as determined as we once thought it was. And the Saints have got to bring it week in and week out. They're not talented enough to play bad. I mean, that's the case for everybody in the NFL, but there have been years past where
they get away with
they could get away with it a little bit. You can't do it this year. The margin for error is very slim.
No, and I agree with you, Sean. I mean, again, look, you got injuries to key positions on this team. You have to bring it each and every week. And the fact that you would be in a situation where you would not, again, be up for the Atlanta Falcons is mind-boggling at this point. Well, a lot of the reason why, again, on offense was, again, the continued up and down play of the pass catchers, which was, I counted 8, some said 6, some said 7 drops. You cannot win consistently when the quarterback is putting the ball where you can catch it, and again, you're not coming down with the football.
That's it. I mean, that's it. And, the Seattle game and this game has really popped up because in the Seattle game, some of the struggles was more separation, getting open. And then in the game last week, it felt like the drops were a problem. They could not catch contested balls. And look, there were guys on those receivers, but you got to come down with the catches. Not easy catches, but they're NFL catches. You have to make those catches. The 2 deep balls to Kenny Stills, got to make that catch, both those catches. Adam Troutman, you've got to make that catch on 4th down. That extends a drive.
Yes.
That extends a drive. And who knows what kind of points you could have gotten out of that drive, which, if you add it all up at the end of the game, clearly made a difference. There were others. Deontay Harris slipped and fell, missed a ball in his hands that it was 1st and 25 at that point. They catch it there. Maybe it's 2nd and 6 as opposed to 2nd and 25, and the whole drive implodes. So combine that with the sloppy penalties, and it wasn't like, oh, that's a tough call. No, these were pretty obvious calls.
Yes.
And
on the offensive line as well, right?
Offensive line, which has been,
come on.
To me, the most consistent thing about this season. It really set this team back. And I think Sean Payton said it best, and I'll give him credit because he was not going to get lost in the great comeback. He was going to say, no, that team deserved to win.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Falcons deserved to win. They played better than us, and that's why they got the victory. And Saints got to regroup. Now, look, it's only one loss, but I do think now everything kind of tightened, so you got to be mindful. And now there's no playing down. Tennessee's the #1 seed in the AFC,
Right.
so you've got to bring your quote-unquote A game to a tough place to play.
But you may do it without Alvin Kamara, who
Yeah.
has an injury now. You got a knee injury. You look at the situation. We talked about usage on the radio and on here on this show, coming back to bite them. It seems to be a slight injury. We'll see if he's back at practice today and tomorrow. To me, if you got to hold him out just to let him rest, you do it. But again, he is the offense right now. Ill afford to be able to lose Alvin Kamara at any point this season.
Yeah, and the today's injury report will come out at about 3 o'clock.
Yes.
So if you're watching the rebroadcast of that, that'll sort of explain why there isn't an update. But Kamara has to. The situation with Kamara is he is the offense right now. So if he can't go, or let's just say all of a sudden he does get healthy,
right.
Can you really give him 20 touches this week?
No.
So you're in a tough spot
Right.
because you had to ride him. I mean, it's a big reason why you had 5
no
wins to
choice.
begin with. You had to ride him, but you always knew it was going to be a little bit of a balancing act, and it always happens at that position, in particular with running backs who are somewhat undersized.
Yes.
McCaffrey's the same way. He battled injuries.
Right.
Kamara's going to be banged up. So this is really a situation where the Saints are going to have to monitor, and if he can't go, thankfully you brought in a guy like Mark Ingram you can count on. My question would then be who becomes the other guy that gets the reps as that #2 back if Kamara can't go or is in a limited role.
Right, because Ty Montgomery was also on the injury list this week. So again, that's part of this. And then look, Kamara's a dog, okay? He's going to get on the field. He plays through injury. The problem is, again, not playing through the injury. The problem is, again, he becomes less effective when he's injured.
We saw it in 2019.
Right.
He was battled that injury all
Right.
year long. He was not the same. Ironically, I think it was the Tennessee game where it finally looked like he had kind of come out of that and he was healthy enough to beat Alvin Kamara. So it's a very fine line you have to walk. And I know the Saints are mindful of what happened in 2019, how it kind of lingered.
Yeah.
So do you rest him? It might be worth it, given who you're playing and the fact you may not get a whole lot out of him anyway. Do you let it? I don't know. I mean, that's a tough balancing act for the Saints.
Well, the good news is the doctors let him back in the game on Sunday.
Yeah, and I still have not seen exactly
Right.
where the hit happened or what happened with the knee, but that's a tough situation.
No, it is.
You got to watch it.
And we were talking about it before the show. My thought is, if he's not going, you may have to go with Taysom Hill at quarterback, just to give you again another running, a weapon, a player that the defense has to account for at the quarterback position, the ability to run the football. Again, this will help the pass catchers who have not been able to get separation, have not been able to catch the ball consistently. Again, maybe to be able to get open. But more importantly, it puts a lot of stress on that defense. They may have to go in that direction without again their main weapon, which is Kamara.
Yeah, look, there are two schools of thought. What I think should happen is what you just said. What I think will happen, I think Trevor gets another week. I really do. And I think he's a guy that he didn't do anything to lose the status of being the starting quarterback last weekend.
It's not a punishment.
I don't know if that
it's a
holds
matchup.
water with Sean Payton, or if he truly feels like right now it's just the best opportunity to win is with Trevor. But I think he gets one more week with a quick hook.
Right.
But I also think even if he quote unquote starts the game,
Right.
I think you're going to see a lot more with Taysom in the backfield.
Yeah.
Because we saw what happened. I mean, that was a spark, and
Yes.
he used the middle of the field. And I was going through and watching film again. I said, my God, it's been so long since they've been effectively been able to use the middle of the field. And that was even with Jameis the last couple of games he played. So with Taysom on the field, to me, you can't just play straight up man-to-man. And right now, the Saints receivers cannot get open on man-to-man coverage other than Deontay Harris. It's mind-boggling to me how night and day it is with zone coverage versus man coverage. So if you get a guy like Taysom and all of a sudden defense has got to shift to his own, then all of a sudden your receivers might become a little more, be able to get open a little bit more. It creates a little more separation, and maybe it opens up your passing game. I'm positive these are all things that Sean Payton has thought of, and I guess you have to trust Sean Payton in this scenario because I don't think he made the wrong call with Trevor last
not
week.
At all.
I thought Trevor made some nice plays. There were a few throws that got away from him, but I think this is the line right here this week. If it's still stagnant, I think this is probably the end of the Trevor run, and you would probably turn to Taysom Hill.
Trevor's been accurate. He has been calm. Again, he's not the mobile quarterback that obviously Taysom is, or even what Winston was.
Right. He's not a stiff, but he's not right. He's not either of those two
But
guys.
at the same time, it wouldn't be a demotion. It would be just, again, based on matchups.
Yeah.
And we see that with every other position on the
Exactly.
field. So why would you not see that there? It'd be interesting to see, again, how Peyton looks at this going forward, especially, again, if Kamara cannot go. Big story of this week is Odell Beckham being released by the Cleveland Browns, ultimately clearing waivers. Saints are in the mix along with the Chiefs, the Seattle Seahawks, the Green Bay Packers, the New Orleans Saints, and the New England Patriots for his services. It was reported late last night that he's probably going to sit this week out, which again we talked about that yesterday on the
You'd have to
radio
anyway.
show. At this point, you probably
right
have to,
Right.
and he's going to sign at some point next week. Now, I'll throw it to you because your sources are saying it's been a full court press.
They want him. And even I can only imagine what's going on behind the scenes, because in front of the camera, did you see my package last night
Yes,
at 9
yes, I
o'clock?
did.
I mean, Shy Tuttle, OBJ, if you're listening, we
Right.
want you. Demario Davis, I love playing with great players. Even Marquez Callaway, whose snaps might get limited with a guy like OBJ, says we would absolutely take him with open arms. James Hurst, who we all talked to yesterday, basically said the same thing. That's out in front of the camera, so I can only imagine what's happening behind the camera. And look, from what I understand, Sean Payton understands the situation with his receivers, and he understands the talent like OBJ. I know what the Saints are thinking, and none of us know what OBJ is thinking. He's an enigmatic kind of guy. He's a guy that trying to predict what he's going to do it's not easy. And you can make a case those other places might be better situations, but there's something about being a hometown guy. I know we're both from New Orleans. The city can kind of get your grips on you a little bit. Maybe there's an allure there. I will say you have a little bit of an uncertainty at quarterback, and I don't even know, even if you had with Jameis Winston, I don't even know if that would be, if you would rank in the quarterbacks, if he would be atop that list. But now you don't have Jameis, so I think that even drops you even further. So what does OBJ want this season? What does he want big picture? Does he want the best of both worlds? I think that's probably what anybody would want at that point. But I do know this. Saints want him. From top to bottom, the Saints want him.
Is this a short term, we need you for this year and then go test free agency? Or do you think they want him this year and would like to keep him long term?
I think they want the whole thing. I think they would love to bring him in and have him be the new wide receiver, number one wide receiver in the New Orleans Saints franchise. That's what I think.
Right.
And it all makes sense. I mean, even with Michael Thomas, those two would be great.
They coexist.
They could coexist. I think this is not just a 8-game or 9-game situation. I think they would want Odell Beckham Jr. beyond this year because the Saints trust their locker room when it comes to quote unquote malcontents or guys that have side issues.
Guys that want the spotlight on.
Exactly. And there's something to be said about the locker room lets guys. It's almost that they allow the city of New Orleans DNA inside that locker room. Let guys be themselves a little bit. They have their own personalities and that sort of thing. So I think it'd be a great fit. The question is, where does he want to go? Who does he want to play with? And does he want a ring? Right. And I think if he wants a ring, I mean, there's two other quarterbacks that you could say have a better resume.
Like Kansas City, and I think I failed to mention Kansas City as well.
Kansas City, Green Bay.
I did go Kansas City, Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
And even though it's been reported that Green Bay has offered him a minimum contract, if you're just looking at the quarterback position and the chance to be able to get a ring this year, obviously you're leaning toward those two.
Yeah, exactly. And what the salary this year to me is a little bit irrelevant.
Right.
I mean, I think it's a little bit.
He's already made money.
He's already made money, and he knows the big
payday
payday's coming after this year anyway.
Exactly.
So, look, bottom line, all that to say, the Saints absolutely need him. He would absolutely be worth it. I think the locker room could absorb a guy like that. And if it ever became an issue, they would just part ways.
Right.
They're not afraid.
Look at Junior Galette.
They're not afraid to do that.
No.
So I guess we just wait and see. And look, once it got to the point where he wasn't going to make a decision by Wednesday, he wasn't going to play this weekend. So he's going to sit this weekend out, see what happens. Maybe he just wants another kind of fresh set of what happens in a game to see where I would best fit.
Right.
I mean, that's
or
understandable.
again, let's see what the standings look like after this weekend.
Exactly.
Well, it's really so late in the week, too.
Right.
So, okay, so you say you're going to a team. Maybe you suit up, maybe you run a few routes here and there, but you're not going to be an effective player for anyone.
Exactly. Get there on a Monday.
Get there on a Monday, you
do
start
a full
fresh.
week and do everything.
Okay, and you're going to get you're going to get all the spotlight. And then look, there's the other part of it, which Look, we know him from being here. We know him from LSU. He loves this.
Loves
okay, the spotlight has been on him the entire week now, and it'll now go into next week. So this is right up again his playbook.
Last time he was in that building, he stole the spotlight from the,
Right,
from
exactly,
the LSU guys.
right. Yes, he did.
So I mean, it's been a crazy run, but at the end of the day, now the dust is all settled. The Saints won them. Now we wait on OBJ.
Right, and again, from what you're saying is, and this is interesting, we know that Sean Payton has personally recruited him, and that you're saying you believe this is more than just, hey, come join us this year and then test free agency. This is, we want you long term, which is, again, that means something, I think, from a stability standpoint, but also, again, the caveat to that is coming home.
Coming home, and I just think Sean Payton understands what he has on his roster, understands what his quote-unquote #1 receiver has been hurt the last 2 years. They need some explosiveness at that position, and he can provide that. And Sean Payton trusts himself and trusts the environment to provide stability and a locker room where he can thrive. So that's why I believe this is more than just a one-year rental.
What do you say to those that say he's over the hill? He's done. He's been often injured. The diva situation isn't worth the injuries. And when you look at his stats in Cleveland, he's a guy that his better days are past him.
Fair, very fair. Did not fit in well with that outside zone bootleg scheme that they run in Cleveland. Clearly was not on the same page with Baker Mayfield. Did not like the celebrity nature of LeBron and all these guys thanking free OBJ and his dad coming out. Hated that.
Right.
But football's football, winning's winning, and I just ask those quote-unquote doubters, you can stand pat, and then what do you have?
Right.
Or you can roll the dice and get something that may be an injury risk. Maybe he's not quite the same player, or he could be.
Yeah.
It could have been the situation.
It could be, yeah.
To me, that's worth it. So, I'm one, I hate the side drama. I hated that he had to kind of call on his celebrity friends to do kind of, to help him out on social media. But I think at the end of the day, he'd be worth it.
Yeah. Talk about Mark Ingram. What do you think he's going to bring? What has he brought to the table? What do you anticipate him bringing to the table for the rest of the season? I think he needs a little bit more usage, to be honest with you, with his physical running style and his ability to catch the ball in the backfield, which I think is really underrated.
Check the tape. Check the first few plays of the game last week. I thought he was great. He looks fresh, man.
Yeah,
he really looks fresh for a guy that's 30. I don't know what happened to him in Baltimore, because that first year he was with Lamar, it looked like they worked well together.
Very well.
Then all of a sudden he's with Houston. Was he about 30, 31 years? I don't know how old he is exactly, but he's 31. I think he's got some juice left. I think he's a guy that you can trust. He's pounding the rock. I think he's still got it. That was probably the biggest thing that I noticed, because I looked at his numbers in Houston, and it was whatever.
Right.
Then I checked a few plays. I'm like, okay, he's running zone, he's running gap, he's running counters, he's running powers outside zones, which is something he could not run when he was here the first time around. And then all of a sudden I see him, he's got better vision. He just looks like a smarter football player. And when you're a smarter, more veteran football player, there's no wasted motion.
Right.
And you just get to where you're going very quickly. He just looks fresh right now.
Gardner Johnson seen in a boot last night at the Pelicans game. We saw him injured, tried to get up and get back into the huddle, and was screaming, was to the training staff, my toe. Hopefully that's not a long-term injury. He is an integral part of again, what the Saints do on defense.
Thought he struggled the last 2 weeks, though. And from what I understand, in-house there was some issue in terms of just he's just not playing as well. Because if he doesn't match up well with his receiver, just pay attention to that. Because when he doesn't match up well with his receiver, the whole secondary seems to kind of come apart a little bit. And I think that happened this week. It happened last week. It happened in the Giants game. But in saying that, he's clearly the best option at that nickel position. And when he's on, he is on. He gets in receivers' heads. We know that. And he's capable of making big plays. Whether it's sack, interceptions, talking trash, stopping the run.
Right.
But he's had a rough couple of weeks. I don't know. I seriously doubt he plays this week if he's in a boot right now.
Yeah, me too.
So we'll see how long it lingers. If he doesn't go on IR, that's a good tell. But if he does go on IR, then you it's at least 3 weeks.
3 weeks. P.J. Williams right now looks like he's stepping into that spot.
Yes, but I went back and did a little research. Bradley Roby played quite a bit of nickel when he was at Houston.
Right.
And you read some of the reports, they felt like that was his better position. So it wouldn't shock me if there's a combination of those two guys. And the Saints do play a lot of third down dime, which means there are basically two nickels on the field.
Yes.
So PJ and Roby would be along the interior there. So I think they would both get on the field in that scenario.
The crossing routes have been the death knell for this team for years now. It just is tough. Lattimore doesn't cover crossing routes well. We saw Gardner Johnson getting beat on crossing routes. Again, that's something that they got to be able to figure out. Look, it's tough with the NFL no matter what. When you're crossing a guy and you're having to go through multiple players, it's tough. But again, that's been their Achilles heel.
Yeah, and look, the Saints erased the opponent's run game. That's a huge advantage for any defense to have. They erase it from down one, first down of the game.
Yes.
So what does that leave you with? Well, if the opponent's receivers are able to consistently beat the Saints secondary, that's their only path to victory.
Right.
And look at the losses. Look what's happened in those games. And honestly, it happened in the Tampa Bay game. They were able to claw their, kind of withstand the blow. Yes. I think that's certainly something to watch. And I also think it's tough because you have, it's such a luxury to not have to worry about an opponent's running back.
Right.
They're a non-factor in every single game you play.
Sure.
So all you really have to worry about is that explosive pass plays that sometimes they give up. But they've got to figure out a way to be better, whether that's disguising some coverages, whether that's just better technique. But the explosive plays have started to creep back up, and it's starting to become an issue. And one of the common themes is also the crossing route or the deep ball, whatever the case may be, but also they're not getting home on the pass rush. That is a problem because they've invested so much in that position.
That's where I was going next. Explosive plays have been a real problem. But explosive plays happen in a lot of cases because there's time to throw the football. We all thought once Onyemata came back that, again, we'd see this pass rush rejuvenated. We've seen it in crunch time where, again, they've been able to go in and maybe, again, be able to sack the quarterback. But they are far from where they need to be in terms of pressures and again, getting to the quarterback and sacking the quarterback.
Yeah, you think of week one, how great it looked.
Yeah.
And you thought, this was Aaron Rodgers. My goodness, this is why you invest in the defensive line. And been seen since.
Right.
It really hasn't. Other than the Seattle game, and it's Geno Smith. I don't know what you were doing.
You throw in again the end of the Tampa game, the end of the Atlanta,
right?
Again, where they got to.
It's important. I don't want to discount that. I don't want to discount playing well in crunch time because it's definitely important. But I do think the overall consistencies up front when it comes to rushing the passer has not been there. Peyton Turner was banged up yesterday at practice. I don't know if he plays. Marcus Davenport, he's starting to flash on tape. He just got to make the play. Cam Jordan, I'm starting to get a little bit concerned with, just in terms of I don't think he's being a consistent playmaker. And then David Onyemata, I think, has got to work his way back in.
At this point in his career, he needs a guy across from him. For years he's been the guy that's taken the double teams, and the other guys have feasted on single up against either a tight end or a tackle. At this point in his career, this is where Davenport should be stepping up, where again he's getting the double teams and Jordan is not. So I get it. Jordan has slowed down a bit, but at some point he can still be an effective player if the guy on the other side of him gets his job done. And if he's the terror, he's the guy that is again soliciting the double teams.
Okay, there's a lot there. Yes, I agree. But I don't. If you go from last year to this year, it's moderate, but I think there's a little bit of a decline in production in just his actual play. I think Davenport, when healthy, those are two key words with him. When healthy, has shown up. You see 92 everywhere. Running plays.
I agree.
Passing plays.
Yeah.
I want to see the rookie
Turner's
emerge.
Flashed, right?
I think he's flashed at times.
I think Grandis has taken a step back.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's kind of come down to earth a little bit. So I think he has gotten some production on the other side. And I just think he just hasn't been quite as productive as he has been in years past. And look, he's 32 years old. He's 11th, 12th year in the league. So, it happens.
Came in the same year.
Exactly. So, we'll see.
Harris, DUI, out in Baltimore, got probation. NFL coming off the Henry Ruggs situation. They rarely look past that anyway. But now the Saints have to be worried about at what point will he miss maybe between 1 and 3 games. And it's going to happen this season. It's just a question of when.
And he's been their best wide receiver.
Right.
Who would have thought we would have said that?
Nobody.
And it's not even close, Eric. The amount of consistency, the way he releases off patterns, the way he reads defenses, the way, for the most part, hangs on to the ball. He can do a lot of things. He's 5'6", and somehow he's
give the coaches a lot of credit, right?
Yeah.
The guy came out of Assumption as a kick returner.
And look what he's done. So, point being, if you can't land OBJ, and he has to miss a couple of games this season.
You're going to the wishbone.
What is going on? You know what I'm saying? So they're in a tight spot there. So that's something to certainly monitor. It's not going to be this week, obviously. And generally, by Tuesday, you would know of a suspension. And I don't know, you might get a kind of a stay if you have some sort of appeal. I don't know how that works, but that's something to definitely watch, because you're very thin and very limited in production at that position as it is. And the best one, if he has to go away for a couple of games, that could be a problem.
And the question is, would you rather him do it sooner than later? Would you rather get it out the way and not have it affect maybe the last few games of the season going into the playoffs? Or again, would you rather try to roll the dice and see if maybe you could push this in the next season?
Yeah, I don't know, because you got some tough games coming up. So I don't know. I think the wins and losses will kind of work itself out regardless of when he gets suspended, if he gets suspended.
Saints Titans, what do you think?
I don't know. They match up fairly well. Two teams that kind of are built similar. They run the football, they play defense. I don't think Lattimore has another one of those games. I think he's going to be up for a guy like A.J. Brown. Julio Jones, I think he's still productive, not quite the same player. I can live with that matchup. Tannehill's 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Simeon, if he makes good decisions. Before the game, before I knew Kamara was hurt, I thought it was going to be a Kamara type of game, because I thought he would be the X factor in this game. If he can't go, then you turn on Mark Ingram. I don't feel great about this one. I don't feel confident in the victory yet. So I got to figure out a path to victory before I can say.
All right, no problem. We'll just watch him on Fox 8.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. We're going to the collegiate game. We'll talk about LSU Tulane. We'll finish up with the New Orleans Pelicans. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Derek Asher. Our guest today, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports. Stay tuned.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We turn to LSU, 4-5, 2-4 in the SEC. Losers to Alabama last week, 20-14 out in Tuscaloosa. Look, I didn't think they'd be able to hang with them. I'm sure that Bama didn't think they were going to be able to hang with them. And the fact that, look, I got to be honest with you, Sean, and you're on the show every week. We talked about the coaching situation last. We didn't even talk about
the game.
We didn't talk about the game. I can tell you that's Alabama LSU is a marquee game. I don't care when it's played, where it's played, whatever. Again, national TV. You look at the ratings on the game. One of the highest rated games in the history of ESPN on Saturday night football. So again, obviously the nation was watching, but really didn't cover it last week because again, figuring a blowout. The injuries on this team, having to play so many guys that again, we're not counted on to play this season, figured it was done, they were getting blown out. The effort was incredible. And look, they were right there. They were a Hail Mary away from maybe upsetting the number 2 team in the nation.
Just to tell you how far off the radar this was for me.
Right.
My wife asked if you want to do dinner this Saturday. I got a reservation for 8:30. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I mean, I wasn't even paying attention to LSU, Alabama. I was running to that bar quite a bit during dinner to go check the updates on the score there while following on my phone.
Right.
Was not expecting that. I was able to watch the first half at my house, and I was like, wow, okay, they got a little pep in their step. They got a little extra energy. They're pulling out all the stops with the fake punt, and they score a touchdown to start. So, I mean, it was a great effort. It wasn't like fluky. It wasn't like tip passes. I mean, they were lining up and they were rushing the guy. They were blitzing every down, whereas that been all year. So it was a valiant effort, a great effort. It stinks that we have to go back to cheering on moral victories, but that was a moral victory, and I hate it because it just goes to show you just where the gap is between LSU and Alabama. But nonetheless, they came there ready to play, and they gave Alabama all they could handle, and Alabama came out on top. But you could tell after that game that there was a little extra step, a little extra pep in that step, a little extra energy, and I liked it. I mean, I really did, because there's been such a dark cloud over the program over the last couple of weeks.
It does show, it validates that no matter what happens in the offseason, this is a talented team. There's still talent on this team. And I've talked about this a lot throughout this entire situation since Ed Orgeron has been relieved of duties and will be fired at the end of the season. That they have a core of good players. The transfer portal will either help them or hurt them, but I think it could be negligible, because if you bring in a big-time coach, he's got recruits that are going to want to follow him. He's got players on his team now that are going to want to follow him in that transfer portal. So again, I think it may negate any players you may be losing your transfer portal. And then, of course, you may lose your national recruits, but if you can hold down the Louisiana recruits based on what you have there, I don't think it's going to take long if you get the right coach to get this team back in contention.
Call me crazy, but I just think on the recruiting trail, especially within Louisiana, they've been told good things are coming. That's just what I think.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, just kind of my read on the situation. But back to what you're saying in terms of talent and depth, you never know what somebody's going to do when they finally get an opportunity to get on the field.
True.
And I think that's what happened. You saw a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores, a lot of guys
out there.
Playing. I mean, it's an opportunity at SEC, playing Alabama. We're going to give them hell, and that's exactly what they did. So I think you saw that last year in the Florida game as well, kind of reminiscent of that.
Sure.
Look, it's a tough finish, and it's a tough end to an interesting era of LSU football, because it was so high to go so low, and that's tough. But I still think it's a top-tier job. It's going to get a top-tier coach, because you have a top-tier AD who knows the value of the LSU brand.
Sure.
So, and I think the fact that it's been pretty quiet, it's been really quiet over the last. I think the wheels are in motion.
Well, Sean, you can't be in the situation you were in the last two times. You can't end up with your fourth choice, your fifth choice, or settling for a head coach. This has to be a home run hire. Again, for the psyche of the program, to validate the athletic director. There's so many levels on why this has got to be a home run hire.
Look at the track record. That's all. The man is doing the hiring. Look at the track record. And he's a guy that moves in silence. He's a guy that, I mean, he works back doors probably better than anybody in college athletics right now, just working the back channels. I mean, you think about the women's college basketball hire. Her name is Nikki Calder, the coach, announces that she's going to the Las Vegas, whatever the WNBA team was.
WNBA team,
like 2 days later, Mulkey had the job. I mean, the wheels were obviously in motion at that point. So my point to you is, I trust the guy. I trust his track record. And I have full faith in a guy that understands the value of LSU athletics and understands he's not going to go for some sub candidate. It's going to be a top tier candidate getting this job.
And again, look at the PMAC this week with the opening night. Okay, look at the women's game filled once again, with fans that bled over into, again, the men's game with UL Monroe. I mean, just, crowds that were there when you were there.
Oh, yeah.
Crowds there when Dale Brown was coaching. Yeah. Okay, there's a revitalization there. That's what they're looking for. Baseball, #1 recruiting class coming in. There's a revitalization here what we've seen with Woodward. But this is the plum. This is the job.
He knows it.
This is the job.
He knows it. And, look, early reviews on baseball, awesome. Kim Mulkey, just give her a year or two. It's going to be, you're going to be in the Final Four. We know that. football's it. Any
Right.
AD in the SEC, especially Louisiana, born and bred kid like Scott Woodward, is going to understand the value and what you need to do for that program. This is his home run hire. This is his chance to make his impression on LSU football, and I just trust him to make the right call.
Right. All right. Let's talk about this team right now, this weekend. Looks like Max Johnson has plateaued a bit. Okay. Look, I mean, again, you want to see guys continue to get better. The offensive line was an issue. They've really started to play much better.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
There's no excuses now.
There isn't. Again, his mechanics are horrible. He's not seeing the field like he was. He's not the same player in terms of, again, his mobility. He seemed to get out the pocket more last year. He seems to want to hang in that pocket a little bit more. Now Nussmeier is going to give up that redshirt year, and they're going to start splitting reps. I never understood why, again, they were holding on to the redshirt year anyway.
Right.
But it is what it is at this point. Your thoughts on that and how that will proceed going forward?
Well, first off, in Max Johnson's case, I mean, everything fell apart once Keyshawn Boutte got hurt. I mean,
Agreed.
Let's just be honest.
That's a great point.
I mean, once Keyshawn Boutte got hurt, that's where he was going. He just looks hesitant. He looks indecisive. He's still trying to develop a guy he can trust. I think Jack Bech is becoming that guy, but I think Jack Bech is probably better as a 2, not a 1. And there's other players. And I agree with you that he's hesitant to use his mobility now. All of a sudden, it's like he's like a stiff back there. And that's just something that they've got to coach that out of him. I mean, he's got to be an athlete. I think he can be.
And he is a good athlete.
His deep ball was never great. As I broke down on film study last year, it's still kind of the same way. He's much better as the RPO rhythm kind of game. But he's got to play better. And I mean, the line has been drawn now. It's like, look, I mean, you've now, was it 12 starts, 11 starts, if you count all the games last year and all the games this year. You've got to ascend or evolve your game to the next level. So we'll see. Doesn't shock me at all that Gary Nussmeier's names come in. He's got a little bit of swag, got a little bit of juice. He's the backup quarterback. With a quarterback that's struggling, it's always a popular guy. But in saying that, I don't think the story's been written on either guy, because any new coach that comes in may see things totally different. So while it may be a little confusing now, or maybe you may not feel great about it now, everything can change with a new coach.
And of course, they got a guy named Walker Howard that's, he's in the shadows right now. CBS tried to make this a rivalry, with the boot with Arkansas this week. It never worked. But nevertheless, it's a huge game for LSU this weekend. Your thoughts?
I think they can win. I mean, I certainly do. I think it's a winnable game. Arkansas started off on fire this year. I think, obviously, we've seen what happened since. They're built a certain way. They play defense a certain way. I guess it's somewhat unique in SEC ball in today's NFL, in college football at SEC level. So I think, like it at home, you're starting to see, the freak out over Ed Orgeron. Now that he's gone, now that you're starting to see a little bit of, I don't know if nostalgic is the right word or sympathetic is the right word, but you're starting to see, let's finish this thing out, last 3 games of an era. I just think the mood all of a sudden after that Bama game, it's a little bit different. And I think all 3 of these games are somewhat winnable to finish out the season. They got all 3 at home. So
A&M's going to be tough.
It is. They are. And especially with that.
Especially with the rumors out
there. That head coach is going to be interesting. But I think that I do think the Saints, LSU certainly has a chance. And I like their chances this weekend in Baton Rouge.
Right. And of course, when I say rumors, there's always going to be rumors with Jimbo Fisher coming back to LSU, especially with Scott Woodward hiring him at Texas A&M. And obviously, he's one of the coaches that everybody's looking at on the short list there. There could be a bowl game.
Yeah.
There could be a bowl game here, so this could be extended even far further. And again, I'd like to see a bowl game.
Yes.
Of course, you'd like to see that at this point. All right, Tulane, 1-8, 0-5 in the American, but they played as well as they played all season long. When you talk about losing 14-10 to Central Florida, much like LSU, a Hail Mary away from a win. Look, I'm not giving them a pass on the season, but they played a very tough schedule. 4 teams in the top 25, played 2 teams that were ranked second in the nation when they played them. That's tough. That's too tough of a season with SMU, Ole Miss, and of course Oklahoma, Cincinnati, all ranked. But it is what it is. They are who they are right now. The question is, again, continuing to try to be able to win. This is a winnable game with Tulsa this weekend.
Yeah, it's definitely a winnable game. For Tulane, for Willie Fritz, probably have to hit the reset button on where you thought your program was going, and you're going to have to adjust and adapt, and probably have to adjust and adapt your recruiting class. I'm not as well versed in who their commitments are for next year. the American is a tough conference. I mean, it really is. I mean, they've got some good programs in that conference. So if you're Tulane, this was a humble pie year, because we all thought when the season ended last year, this was you're going to catapult yourself to the top of this conference.
Right.
It just hasn't happened. Would we be foolish to think that? I mean, why? If you don't have optimism, what do you have really? I mean, if you don't feel glass half full about a program, what else do you really have? I mean, so I think ultimately it can be done, but I think Willie Fritz and company have got to go back to the drawing board a little bit and reevaluate some of their talent in-house, reevaluate what needs to be done to compete within this conference, and hopefully get back to their winning ways. Because I think this could, if you look at Willie Fritz's track record, this could be a one-off. I think they can get back pretty quickly.
Oh, I don't think it's any doubt it's a one-off. Okay, I think he's too good of a coach. There were some situations, obviously, with injuries that hurt him as well. Look, you lost two guys to the NFL along that defensive line that were outstanding. Jeffrey Johnson was he lost weight. He was supposed to be a guy that was going to dominate. He's not the same player he was last year with the weight on, even though he's had an okay season. You look across the board on the defense, they haven't been as good. Offensively, again, the wide receivers like the Saints, kind of sketchy. And you haven't had Spears the whole season, who is your playmaker.
He's it, right.
Okay, he needs the ball in his hands as much as you can give it to him. And Pratt was injured. He's been injured since really since the Ole Miss game. He hasn't, again, like I said before, you go in your mind's eye and you think back to Archie Manning, and he reminds me so much of Manning just getting brutally beaten every Saturday, but yet getting up and continuing to play.
The kid's nails. There's no doubt about that. They probably get with him to learn how to protect himself a little bit in certain situations.
He said it the other day, right? He's going to start sliding.
Right. I still like him as a prospect. I still like him as a good quarterback. There's some foundational pieces there that I still think you can get back pretty quickly if you're Tulane. But you don't waste this. I'm gonna call it an opportunity. 1-8 is certainly not a great opportunity, but don't waste what the new set of data that you have with this team now. Now you have to reevaluate. Now you have to re-evolve. Now you have to go back to the drawing board and get yourself back into contention. And now that's tough, because now we're going to have to reset the expectations back to 6 or 7 wins now when you thought you were going conference championship. But you got to do what you got to do.
Well, I mean, I've said it, and I know I've upset a lot of Tulane fans when I say it. Look, the best thing that's happened in Tulane is the defections within the American and the merger with, again, the CUSA. They are going to have a chance now, year in, year out, to win championships. And if you're a Tulane fan and you've been beaten down for decade after decade after decade, to be in a conference where ultimately when the season starts, you have a puncher's chance of winning. Not just in football, basketball, baseball, and every single sport. To me, this is who your program is. This is the type of emphasis you put on athletics. This is who you are. So again, embrace it. Embrace it, and when it comes, again, you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have a chance to be able to win and win consistently in your conference. Right now, as you mentioned, it's a tough conference, and they're just not up for it.
Yeah, and I go back to my original thought. I mean, maybe was I foolish to think that maybe they had built
we all did,
the depth to be one of those players in a strong conference?
But you see the gap in athletes.
You start to see it, and
you see it,
and honestly, you're starting to see it, in terms of recruiting and everything else. So, if this is who they are, so be it.
Right. All right. I want to talk about another quarterback before we move on to the Pels. This kid Kelly at Southeastern. Okay. With transfer, came in Southeastern. He's played very, very well during his tenure there. There are some saying this kid's a pro prospect. I mean, he looks like he's got all the measurables. For a pro quarterback, yes.
He's 6'7".
Right.
I can recall was it Turling's Catholic or Catholic New Iberia? One of those schools where he went.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he's the biggest kid on the field,
right?
And he's the quarterback. And it started at Arkansas,
right?
So he got SEC experience. Look what's happened since he's been at SLU.
I mean, come on.
Best program in the state right now, most consistent. I like him. He's got that Cajun accent. You can kind of hear it in his voice. So yes, I think that's a guy with a good off season. A pre-draft combine, pro day. I don't know if he's going to get invited to a combine, but pro day. Maybe he can tag along with Tulane, something like that. Generally, they'll help with that in that regard. I think if he gets in front of scouts, he's going to find himself a draftable grade because he's got great size and he's got a great arm.
Right.
He's not a mobile guy, but still, he's a guy that I think he might find his way in the draft.
I mean, I've seen a couple Southeastern games, and he's impressive. I mean, he really is. Now, I'm looking at the competition. It is what it is, but you're trying to project here, right? and you say, right quarterback coach, right system, got time to grow. He's got some measurables here that, maybe again translate to the next level.
I agree. And look, he was an SEC quarterback.
Right.
I go back to that. He played in the SEC. So this is a guy that I think you got to pay attention to.
Yep, I would agree. All right, let's talk about it. Pelicans 1-11. Again, another horrible start for the franchise. I was asked on social media about the situation here in New Orleans with professional basketball. And, I just said this. We have been blessed with incredible talent, generational talent, from the Buccaneers to the Jazz to the Hornets to the Pelicans. In a lot of cases, ownership was substandard. Ownership was cash poor. Ownership didn't pay attention to the franchise. That has doomed them. Because of that, you've had horrible front offices. Front offices that, again, like I've talked about in a lot of cases, remind me of the John Meekum Saints. I mean, they just do. I mean, if you look at John Meekum during his time with the New Orleans Saints, the type of front offices he had, who he had personnel in there, and then you equate it to what you've seen with the Pelicans, Jazz, Hornets, Bucks, okay? You go right down the line, very similar. Ownership has been the real issue. Gail Benson looks like, again, she is willing to be an owner that's willing to spend the money. Unfortunately, she has not gotten it right when it comes to the front office. And it looked like David Griffin was that guy. We all now know, again, charlatan. It's just, again, the words have not backed up the actions on the court. I don't think this team is going anywhere as long as Gail Benson is alive. But at some point, the fan base is dwindling. NBA, those that love the NBA in this town are at this point saying, you know what, I'll catch it on TV, or again, I'll record it and get through it. I'm not going to waste my time at the arena. That's not a good look for this city. Okay, so at some point you've got to get some stability in that front office. You've got some individuals in there that know what they're doing. Look, I think Trajan Langdon, again, was a guy that was up for this job, and a lot of people believe that, again, he's one of the next great general managers. So you maybe have somebody in-house, but at this point it looks like the David Griffin experiment has failed.
There's a lot there. Let me just start by saying NBA in New Orleans is not the NFL in New Orleans.
I agree.
NBA fans don't get mad. They get apathetic. They don't care. They stop showing up. So it's actually worse, in my opinion. You don't get upset. They don't care. They don't show up. Might casually watch it, might not. It's hard to draw at this time of the year anyway, because I mean we are so entrenched in football. I'm a sports guy, and sometimes I have to remind myself we got to shift the Pelicans right now. It's tough. So the David Griffin experiment. I mean, if you consistently are a revolving door head coach, that's a reflection on you. I mean, one's an accident, two's a trend, three is a problem. Now you're 1-11 right now.
1-11. 1-11.
Both stars banged up. Who knows when your face of franchise is showing up? It's just a bad situation, and it's starting to manifest itself in those stands, in the crowd. It's not a good scenario. They need some, I don't want to call it good luck, but they need some good fortune here to shift. They got to get Zion back. Ingram's got to get back on the court. Right. Something good has to happen for this franchise.
And then the other thing, again, Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report reporting this morning that there was a verbal altercation at the Smoothie King Center when the Sacramento Kings came to town between former head coach Alvin Gentry and David Griffin. They had to be physically separated. I mean, those kind of things just don't look good when things are spiraling down, the toilet right now.
Yeah, I read that report. I don't know what sparked the initial confrontation. I know they said something about David Griffin went to tell him hello or whatever the case may be. Gentry was not happy. There's so much there. I mean, look, Alvin Gentry was not unjustly fired. His record warranted the firing.
Absolutely.
David Griffin has not done a good job as the front office CEO of the New Orleans Pelicans. So when those two guys get into some kind of confrontation, are we supposed to pick a side here? I mean, are we supposed to say who's right, who's wrong? It's a bad look for this one, bad look for that one. I think they're both, based off that reporting, both look like they're wrong in this scenario. Because honestly, since they were in New Orleans, both have been frankly losing, losers, if you want to be honest. I mean, they have not won games. So. Again, frustration mounts. Alvin Gentry clearly has some bitter feelings toward David Griffin, and David
feels
Griffin
like he was lied to.
I mean, David Griffin, I don't know if again, this is all speculation.
Sure.
So it's just one of those instances where things aren't going good, stuff like that pops up, it just looks even worse.
The issue is injury, okay? There's no way look, they couldn't beat Oklahoma City with the team they put on the court last night, okay? And not having Brandon Ingram, not having Zion has been an issue. The Zion thing, who knows? Maybe it's Christmas before he gets back. Maybe it's New Year's. We don't know. But again, it is what it is. The Brandon Ingram thing is troubling. It was supposed to be about pain management. It was a hip contusion. Again, the last game he played was the 29th of October. He's got to get back on the court.
No doubt.
At some point, again, you got to know the difference between injury and being hurt. And the team needs you because there is they cannot score consistently. And these are two guys that's a 25-point-a-game scorer and a 27-point-a-game scorer that's sitting on your bench right now.
Yeah. I mean, and Brandon Ingram's got an interesting. He's got that length, but I mean, from his physical standpoint, I don't know. Is he necessarily built to handle the rigors of the NBA schedule? At some point, you've got to be the guy. I mean, because injuries have followed him for quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken. He's had injuries, knick-knack stuff here and there. So they need some kind of force on the court. Because they've got no chance right now.
I mean, they got Valanciunas is the guy right now.
Right.
He was thought to be third or fourth option.
Right. He's great as a third option.
Right. Okay.
And every now and then a game, throw 25, 26
points. He's a double-double guy. He's leading the NBA double-doubles right now. He is the offense.
Right.
And then you every once in a while, Nickeil Alexander-Walker will step out. You have another player to step out, but it's not enough. This is, again, a young Oklahoma City team beat them last night and beat them soundly. Okay. This wasn't a situation. This is a fluke. They beat them. So we'll see how it is, and you can see the frustration also in Willie Green right now.
Post game, I heard some of the comments post game, something about non-negotiable when it comes to effort. Guys aren't giving effort.
You like to hear that?
Almost to the point where it almost feels like players have already retreated to. Here we go. It's just kind of here we go again. This is just not our night again, and yet just kind of go through the motions a little bit. I mean, what are you, 12 games into the season?
Sean, you're 1-11. You're playing for the 10th seed now.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, at this point, if they get back, if they get healthy, the best you're doing is you're trying to get into the 10th seed at this point.
Not unacceptable. Completely unacceptable.
I agree.
But it would be foolish to just put this on David Griffin because
the injuries.
Honestly, the more the things come out about the Zion situation, the more I can understand David Griffin trying to put a positive spin and a positive face on what's happening because the star player is injured yet again.
But you can't coddle him, though.
No, that is a problem, coddling him. But Zion has to own it. He has to own it. He's got to be physically more mature. He's got to be a more professional. He's got to take care of his body. I understand what David Griffin was doing from a PR standpoint, and trying to just say, hey, he's be back for the season, no big deal. I mean, Saints do that all the time. It happens all the time.
Sure.
So in Zion's case, I think you start to see the narrative shift. Like, look,
as it should
be. Zion, you've got to be a professional here, and it hasn't happened. So.
No doubt.
We'll see.
We'll see. Sean Fazende, Fox 8 Sports, as always. Thanks so much for joining us. All right, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Remember, plenty of ways to catch our program. 6 o'clock tonight on WLAE-TV, 10 o'clock on The Deuce. Friday night, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock on WLAE. Saturday morning at 2 a.m. on The Deuce. And, of course, 5 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television every Saturday afternoon. At Eric_Asher on Twitter, Eric Asher on Facebook, Inside New Orleans Show on Instagram, WLAE-TV YouTube page, ericasher.com. I think I got it all. All right. You catch me on the radio weekdays 4 to 6 on 106.1 FM. Our podcast is on the Anchor app, but it's on all apps out there if you want to check it out. Also, it's at ericasher.com, iHeartRadio app, and the TuneIn Radio app as well. I want to thank our underwriters who make the show possible. Please continue to support our underwriters. Again, they are the reason why this show goes on. And, of course, want to thank Sean Fazende for joining us and the great guys and the great crew here at WLAE-TV. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Will Ingram, Alex Chacon, and he's the best director in the city. He's the best one we got. Will Hill of WLAE-TV. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.